I can't hear you.
Martina, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Good morning. Good afternoon.
That was Nyasha. Nyasha.
Still can't hear you.
I also can't hear her.
Yeah, but I can hear you. Hi, good day. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Martina Williams. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a mom of two, and I moved from South Africa 2016.
Hi, Martina.
Hi, Novi.
Martina.
Good to see you. Hi,
Good
Tiki.
to see you.
Good to see you.
My name is Nobukosi Mafu, and I actually went to high school with Martina in Bulawayo. Seems like a lifetime ago,
Yes.
right?
You can say that again.
I am a mining engineer by day, but my passions lie with creating. I dub myself now as a parenting expert. I'm a mom of one. My son Owami is 16 years old, which is interesting. A lot of time people are like, "Oh, so that's your brother?" And I'm like, "Yes, let's go with that one." And I'm joining you from Campbell River in British Columbia, Canada.
Hi, fellow Canadian. Hi, my name is Nonsugelelo Zita. I'm a mother of three, a full-time student. I've got three busy girls. Hey, three busy girls. My oldest is 14, and my middle child is 12. My little one is 7 and autistic and a very busy body. So I've got my hands full.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I have a son that is autistic as well. My 12-year-old is autistic.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
And how are you finding raising an autistic child? Is he your only son or?
like I said, I have two. Here's my little one.
Yeah.
This is the baby. This is Ola. He's 8. Say
Hi, handsome.
Yeah, so I mean, the only challenges were initially, so like when it came to like introducing him to new types of foods and stuff like that, that was one of the propelling factors for us to move from South Africa because there wasn't much treatments available and stuff like that in terms of like what can I say, like opportunities there. For example, like speech therapy, occupational therapy, he needed a lot of that. And then here, when we came here, all those things were kind of like free initially, like you get those services for free. And then in 2018, that's when he went to a food clinic where they monitored him for 3 months so that they could help him like get acclimated to different textures of food. Because when we were in South Africa, he only used to eat like 3 things only, like literally 3 things. He would just have brown flakes, toasted cheese, and green apples. That was about it. And my kid was so skinny. So one of the reasons we came here was mainly to get him help, get him treatment, and I'd say that that has really helped a lot.
Yeah. And did you find so I imagine like being home where you're home and in South Africa everything's quite to Zim, right? What did you find was like the biggest difference in trying to find medical care for your autistic child now in a completely foreign environment? Did you find was it easy to access those services and those resources?
You mean like daycare and stuff like that, or you mean like home care?
Well, all the care that a child with autism would need.
Right, right. Okay, so for example, with the school setup system, that is perfect. Everything is great because they cater for special needs kids. They have their own schools, they have their own special needs schools, and they have their own classes. So when it comes to the school setup, that was perfect because we came when he was only 5. So he went to a special needs school. When we got here, he did the tests that were necessary. Like, for example, he went for a hearing test. He went for a speech test just so that they could put him on an IEP. So an IEP is an individualized educational program whereby they'll monitor him individually so they can access his goals because he's not like a regular mainstream kid. So when it comes to school care, definitely I'd say that the school system here is perfect because they even have days whereby they go shopping, they teach the kids about money and things like that. They have what do you call them, like school tours every week. On a Thursday, you give them pocket money, They teach him how to go to the restaurant, how to order his food by himself. So some of those things were not there in South Africa at the time when we lived, because the school that he was attending, they were more like a daycare center. They didn't have all those facilities like speech therapy, occupational therapy, some of the things that a child needs on a constant daily basis. So I definitely say it's been a good it has worked in our favor. So, and then when it comes to home care and everything else, that was all on me, and that has its own challenges. I'll tell you in a bit.
I see Nyasha's on screen. Can you hear us, Nyasha?
Yes, thank you so much, Nobukosi. You started the questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience. That has to be the most stressful thing that has happened to me post-COVID. But I'm so glad you guys stayed and carried on with the chat. I will do a bit of an introduction. We are here for the Pan-African Leadership Center talk. My name is Nyasha, and I am going to be chatting with you amazing ladies. Have you introduced yourselves to each other already?
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
Okay. And I am particularly, obviously, just very excited and happy and glad that you beautiful African women all over the world are doing your thing. You're inspiring, you're strong, you're powerful. And I'm so glad that you're my friends and that you came on to share your experiences. I think Martina was already talking. I had a question for her myself, but I think you've already shared some of your experiences, so I'll catch on. So I'll ask Nancy a question, and I wanted to find out, having been you're in Canada right now, how do you feel you have adjusted, you and the girls back home? How do you think you've adjusted? Are you confident to say that is home and you are preparing your children for life permanently in Canada, for them to raise their children there? How are you doing that? Are you teaching them ways of life in Canada? Are you still teaching them cultural ways back home? Are you doing sort of an integration of, I am an African in Canada and I'm creating my own new way of life? What are you doing?
That's quite a mouthful, eh? I'll say, with me and the girls, with my own background, I choose the type of traditions that I still want to maintain. I'm not just picking everything and saying we are Africans and we do things this way. So I've got certain traditions that I still maintain.
Just when someone else is speaking, because I'm now coming in as a guest as well. I'm not coming as I'm able to mute you. So if someone else is going to speak, if you can just mute, because then there's a back sound coming through, an echo. So Nancy, do you feel like it is challenging to still do you speak to the kids in vernacular? Do you make traditional home meals? Do you teach them, things that are perceived to be what is your background?
Yeah, so we mostly stick to our traditional meals. I love cooking, and yeah, so we mostly stick to what we know. Yes, we do try different things. And as for me and the girls have got a choice. Whenever they feel like they can't take the Canadian life, they're free to choose to go back home. They know they've got that choice. If this is not for them, they're not forced to. Although the main reason why we moved to Canada was to give them the normal childhood that we had when we were growing up. When we were growing up, we could walk to the shops freely. We could play outside without our parents worrying. So we didn't have that in South Africa. They had to be stuck inside the complex always. We had to worry when their school transport wasn't there in time. So that was the main drive for us to come here. But they still have a choice. If Canada is not for them, if they don't feel the vibe in Canada, they are free to say at any time and they'll go back home.
Okay.
Other than that, in terms of discipline, I still maintain my African traditions, eh? We still don't call people by names. We still refer to them as aunts and uncles. And we still don't call mom and dad by name. We still say mom and dad, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that is enough to pass down what we say? Let's say I am Nyasha, I am Shona and Ndebele. I speak both languages. Is it enough to just pass down our manners and our meals? Do you feel like there's something more we could do, or do you feel as though we're doing enough, or do you have suggestions?
I'm more worried about the language part of it, because trust me, they've lost the language. I try my level best to speak to them in our language. With Nala, it's totally gone. She doesn't get it. The two older girls, now they only understand, but they can't speak the language. I mean, we're always busy from 8 a.m. They're out of the house, gone to school. They come back around 4 or 5. You busy, you come back, you have to juggle house chores, you have to juggle your own assignments. So there's really no interaction and stuff. Weekends are busy. You're trying to, I mean, we don't have house help in our household. I don't know others. So weekends are all about trying to get the chores done. We don't have time where we really spend trying to teach them culture and everything. It's not by choice though that we are not teaching them our language and everything. I think life here is quite busy. Hey.
No, because what do you think, if you were to rank it as the most important thing to pass on to your children, being, a mom from Zimbabwe originally, what would you say off the top of your head is the most important thing you would want to say that you passed on?
That's a great question. So that type of stuff is exactly what I talk about on my podcast, the League of Evil Moms, and it's all about the experiences of African mothers raising their children outside of the motherland. And for me, in my experience with Owami, the one thing that I've decided I have to teach my son, I have to ingrain in him his right to take up space. We come from a culture that tries to make children very small. Shut up, tulumsindo, puma pandle, go outside, all that stuff. We only realize it as adults, but that stuff was intended to make us smaller and smaller and smaller so that we could fit into whatever. I don't even quite understand what the purpose of that kind of language and behavior was towards children. I think it's inappropriately dubbed as culture and tradition, and I don't think that's what it is. I really believe in my Ndebele culture. I'm a proud Ndebele woman, and when I square up my Ndebele history and my Ndebele culture, and then some of the things that we saw growing up in Zimbabwe, to me, it doesn't match. And so I've decided that Owami, he must know that he has a right to take up space, whether he's on the playground, whether he's in the classroom, one day when he's in a corporate boardroom, wherever he is, I want him to show up with his chest proud and his chin high, saying, Mina, I am Owami Mafu, and I have a right to be here.
That's wonderful. That's amazing, Nabi. I want to carry on with that sentiment. Do you think that what you are teaching him now has been influenced by your surroundings, your geographic location, that it has made you say, okay, this is what I want to pass down? Do you think you would have a different perception were you still in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe?
Yeah. Sometimes I try and think what it would have been like if I had had my son in Zimbabwe, but I'm so grateful that I had him here, because when I came here, I was 17 years old and I was pregnant. And that put me at a lot of disadvantages. I was a new immigrant, I was Black, and I'm pregnant, I haven't finished high school. And so my mom at the same time, she had my little sister, and she was trying to establish us as a family. So she didn't really have time to look after me and my condition. So I had to do everything for myself. And in trying to, for instance, I had to go find a hospital. Where am I going to give birth? Go and register, find prenatal classes, all that stuff. I did it myself. And in doing that, I became aware of the barriers that a 17-year-old child will face. People not taking you seriously. I remember one time I went to this one school and I said, hey, I would like to register for school. My son is 3 months old and I want to become an engineer. I need to take these courses. And this woman was like, no, you're not going to be able to do all that stuff with a baby. And I was like, wait, what? But that was like a constant in my journey. And so when I started raising Owami, my eyes were very open. I wasn't naive to the facts. And that's just that when you look the way we do in the places where we live, sometimes opportunities are denied to you just because of the way you look. And so that's why, like I said, with Owami, I have to ingrain in him that if you need help, you have a right to receive it. If you need to be heard, you have a right to shout. If you are cold in a room, you can say, hey, can you turn up the heat? I'm cold. All of those things are important as our children move through the world, because they're already in a world that doesn't want to hear from them. The world wants to tell them who they are. And frankly, as young African boys, it's that you're a threat, you're not to be trusted, you are a thug, whatever. So I think the biggest difference for me has been, if he was back home, his skin color wouldn't be an issue, right? It would be other things I'm having to teach him. But because we're here, there's this whole other portion that, in addition to being respectful, in addition to being a good student, in addition to being all these other things, you also have to bear in mind that the way you look actually does make a difference. And in a lot of times, it's not a good one. So.
Okay, thanks, Nabi. Martina, do you feel, as you're raising your children in the US, that there is a sense of what level do you feel more of a sense of community there? Do you have the community feeling of people that are from Africa that are assisting you? There's that unity among you, or do you think that it's greater back home with your extended family and immediate family?
Right. Okay. Thank you. So I'd say that the only support I have here is like a few knit friends and church, of course. So one of the things that my mom told me to do was to join like a church. So I took it upon myself as an initiative to join an African church, because that would help me meet people from home much quicker and people that have the same values as myself. And then for me, one of the things that I find as a necessity is to raise my kids in a religious way. So I took it upon myself to join an African church, and I feel like I get a lot of support from the church people and a few knit friends that I have that have also moved from back home. But in terms of family, I don't have even a single person I could call family here in terms of like sister, mom, or brother here, or cousins, first cousins. I don't have any first cousins here in Atlanta, like in the US. Most of my family is back home and in South Africa, and some people are in London. So it's just over the phone. And I mean, I'm still trying to invite my family over here, but then you find that it gets hard with visa processes, like getting a green card for them. So all those things can affect having that kind of support from family. The only thing I can do is pick up the phone my mom, or just visit them whenever I get a chance. But apart from that, in terms of the support, I'd say that I'd like to thank some of my friends in Canada and here in the US that brought me up to speed with the things that happen here. For example, when I moved here, I didn't know, like, for some of the basic things, like you can't just make a kid, like, like, let's say a kid misbehaves in the supermarket. The instant thing back home is just to smack the kid and be like, hey, you cannot do that. You can just roll on the floor and do that. But then here, I can't do that because the police or whoever is watching is going to think that I'm a bad mom. And I'll have the child protection services now, like, on my case, thinking that, okay, this child is being abused or something like that. So I'd say I appreciate the friends that I have here in Canada and here in the US that have brought me up to speed with everything that happens here in the diaspora.
Okay, so definitely it's the way you parent, the way you discipline your kids, what you're teaching them.
Mm-hmm.
You agree that it is your experience as a mother
Mm-hmm.
is dependent on your surroundings, your location, the influence around you. So
Right.
how important then is it, do you think, to keep your kids still rooted to
Mm-hmm.
the motherland, as Nobby would say, um, in terms of, let's say, language, and all they're doing is probably
Mm-hmm.
going back on holiday once in 4 years, 5 years, sometimes a year. What is then the need of still keeping them in touch, in tune with language and dance and music? Is it just so that, do you think it is important that they know where their parents grew up and their heritage?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely it's imperative because, like, for example, how Nobi mentioned earlier on that we were raised in such a way to be like, kind of like, I wouldn't say timid because not everybody is timid, but we're raised in such a way that we always, like, in a nutshell, we're raised to be so respectful. So, like, we're not that opinionated sometimes. We are so scared because you're taught to speak to adults in a certain manner and stuff like that. So I still say you need to kind of like strike a balance in terms of like still instill like a culture towards the kids, because I remember like a little while ago my son, one of the 8 year old that the ladies met earlier on, he's more outspoken, he's more opinionated. So the one time he was like hi to a regular auntie from back home, and then that auntie kind of like slashed me. She was like, Martina, your son is so rude. And then for me that kind of seems normal now. That's the new normal for me. It's like my son can say hi. You don't really necessarily have to say good morning. You don't have to like, like show some type of acknowledgement. You can just say hi, good morning. That's enough. Miss Candace, that's somebody's first name. You can call it your teacher, Miss Candace, their first name right here. So some of the things, like, I still feel like it matters for me to kind of instill the home culture, because I don't want my kids to be called disrespectful. At the same time, I want to strike a balance whereby I want my kids to be free and outspoken and be able to interact here in the first world country. Because I mean, if you're gonna be quiet and timid, sometimes life can pass you behind. People can step over you in the workplace. You need to be strong. If you want to go places, you need to have a strong character. So I don't want my kids to be timid. So I need to kind of strike a balance with instilling the cultures from back home and say, okay, if you're greeting your grandma, you have to say, hi, good morning, Gogo, or good morning, Granny. You can't just be saying, oh, hi, or something like that. Kind of show some respect. So, like, for example, another example, when I went home in December, I was at home with my parents, so I video called my kids again. So my son was like in his element as well. So like he was just like, "Hi, grandpa." Like he wasn't like, like how back home there's a certain way you will talk to your parents, but then for him he was just like talking casually, like he's chatting to his mate. But then my dad was like, okay, but I mean he kind of accepted it because he knows that this is a kid from a different era, is being raised in a different setup. So I guess, yeah, it's just about striking a balance, I'd say.
Okay, thank you so much, Martina. Nziki, do you have something that you would want to leave us with, about your experience and striking balance and generally just advice that you could give young moms that are in the diaspora?
Yeah, thank you, Nyasha. I'll agree with Martina with the issue of striking balance. I want the girls to maintain the culture that we're raised with back home, while also taking up space, as Nobukosi Mafu said. They mustn't feel intimidated by the fact that they were born in Africa, they're Black, or whatever issue there is. If they need to rule the world, they can. That's what I always teach them. But at the same time, I always want to, I want for them to learn the culture that we're raised with, just in case should something happen to me. And I mean, we don't have anybody here. They are still young. I always tell myself, should I drive out, get in a car accident, die out there, they'll have to go back home. They also need to get there and be able to adjust easily, rather than throwing the whole entire African culture or tradition out the window and saying, oh, we are now Canadians, we'll live the Canadian way. So I am for balance too.
And Nobukosi, just in your final words, could you maybe share with other young Black or African moms in the diaspora now, how your advice that you give with overcoming and adjusting to being a mom in a foreign land, and just being a woman, being marginalized and having to work, doubly as hard at work, at home. What advice do you have for young moms to, and encouragement?
I think it's counterintuitive, but I think you need to start with, what kind of person do I want my child to be by the time they have to venture out into the world by themselves? For me, I've decided I want me to be kind. I want him to be resilient. I want him to be resourceful, all these things. And so when I've decided that those are the things, then I've had to backtrack, and I said, well, how do you raise a resilient child? How do you raise a resourceful child? How do you raise a kind child? And a lot of that you have to model. Our children are watching us all the time. So you can't say one thing and then do another thing. And so for me, I think the biggest thing I would say for parents, for moms, for Black moms, is decide and get really clear, what do I want my child to be? And then in your parenting every day, the way you talk to them, even the type of values that you from the homeland that you say you want to give them, you have to really evaluate and say, is this tradition even valuable? What does it even do? Some of them are useless. Some of them are damaging. Some of them are abusive. Throw them out. There's no template to motherhood. I think we all have to embrace that our journeys are unique and that our children are unique. And so the way in which we raise them has to be tailor-made, so that one, we can model it for them, we can show them. And secondly, that we create these people who are going to go into the world as fully formed, kind, resourceful, proudly African people.
Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you have any final words from anyone? Something that you'd like to share, to motivate, to encourage?
Okay, I just want to say that to all the moms, in final closing, that be present in your kids' lives. Like, I mean, it's a fast-paced environment, of course, but then just be present, because there's so many things that could happen in terms of distractions, people joining gangs. Like, I'd say that be present in your kids' lives, put them in sports so that they don't get derailed and join bad crowds or get influenced in bad ways. So I just want to say, just be present by all means. Thanks.
Much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much to you all for taking the time to have this chat with me. And I apologize for that little glitch that happened in the beginning. Thank you for staying on. It wouldn't have happened without you. Were you saying something, Nabi?
I just wanted to let everybody know to check out my podcast. I talk about exactly these types of things. It's called The League of Evil Moms, and it's on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts. And I also have a blog called Wednesday's Child. So I don't know if there's show notes, but I'll provide Nyasha with all this information. But I really encourage all moms, especially African moms living abroad, to check it out and join the conversation in the community.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Nyasha.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.